Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios. But now we've changed from Radha Lane in Houston, ISKCON of Houston, to the Darshan Room in Dallas, Texas. And we just got the Darshan of Radhakala Chanji and Giriraj Maharaj giving the Sunday Feast lecture. And we're revved up. And here we have Tulsi Devi, because this is where Giriraj Maharaj does his bhajan in the mornings in this room. So it's quite transcendental, quite sweet. Today is the disappearance of Srila Haridas Thakur, and he's sitting right here next to me by the mercy of Giriraj Swami Maharaj, so we can take his darshan while we're hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. How nice is that? What's in your wallet? Hare Krishna. Welcome to all of you out there in cyberspace, and welcome especially to the devotees in Houston who may be watching right now. I miss you so much. I don't know how I'm going to tolerate the time I spend until I can come back and be with you and read the Bhagavatam again with you. Hare Krishna. And welcome to all of those everywhere in the world. Someone came up to me in the temple room just now and said, Maharaj, I'm watching your daily readings every night and it's changing my life. This is the truth. Anyone who comes and hears the Srimad Bhagavatam from Srila Prabhupada like this every day, his life will change and will get a taste for spiritual life. Okay. So, following in our daily regulated program, we're going to read the very famous, now, I don't know how famous it was before, but it's getting more famous the more times we read it. This is Srila Sanatana Goswami's glorification, deep glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It goes like this. Sarva Shastabdi Piyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwan Dodita Ditya Sri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Sri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguro Man Mahadana Man Nishtadaka Madbhagya Madananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu Saduta Dayin Atini Chochata Kada Hanamunchagadachin Mam Premnarit Kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So yesterday, we had an ecstatic reading. I hope everyone got the chance to hear it. We started from the 7th chapter of the 2nd canto at the verse number 38, which describes the appearance of Kalki at the end of the Kali Yuga. And then Srila Prabhupada proceeds to give us purports from that verse on to where we are now, text 48, which were so incredible, describing why we should take to Krishna consciousness, why we need to, what the situation is in the world, what is the solution to solve the problems of the world, individually and collectively, so clearly and so ecstatically. And now we've reached text number 48. And it goes like this. In such a transcendental state, there is no need of artificial control of the mind, mental speculation, or meditation, as performed by the jnanis and yogis. One gives up such processes as the heavenly king Indra foregoes the trouble of digging a well. In other words, he's giving all the water. Why does he need to dig a well? Indra's bringing the rain. So why does he have to dig a well? Purport. A poor man in want of water undertakes the trouble of digging a well. Similarly, those who are poor in transcendental realization speculate with the mind or meditate by controlling the senses. But they do not know that such control of the senses and achievement of spiritual perfection are simultaneously made possible as soon as one is factually engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Person, the personality of Godhead. It is for this reason that the great liberated souls desire to associate for hearing and chanting the activities of the Lord. For example, the example of Indra is very appropriate in this connection. King Indra of heaven is the controlling deity or demigod for arranging clouds and supplying rains in the universe. And as such, he does not have to take the trouble to dig a well for his personal water supply. For him, digging a well for a water supply is simply ludicrous. Similarly, those who are factually engaged in the loving service of the Lord have attained the ultimate goal of life, and for them there is no need of mental speculation to find out the true nature of God or his activities. Nor do such devotees have to meditate upon the imaginary or real identity of the Lord, because they are factually engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Lord's pure devotees have already achieved the results of mental speculation and meditation. The real perfection of life is therefore to be engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Text 49. The personality of Godhead is the supreme master of everything auspicious, because the results of whatever actions are performed by the living being in either the material or spiritual existence are rewarded by the Lord. As such, he is the ultimate benefactor. Every individual living entity is unborn, and therefore even after the annihilation of the material elementary body, the living entity exists exactly like the sky within the body. I'll read that again. This is deep stuff. Every individual living entity is unborn, and therefore, even after the annihilation of the material elementary body, the living entity exists, exactly like the sky within the body. Purport. The living entity is unborn and eternal, And as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 2:30, the living entity is not exhausted, even though the material elementary body is vanquished. As long as the living entity is in material existence, actions performed by him are rewarded in the next life, or even in the present life. Similarly, in his spiritual life also, the Lord rewards his actions by giving him the 5 kinds of liberation. Even the impersonalist cannot achieve the desired merging into the existence of the Supreme without being favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 4:11 that the Lord awards results according to what one desires in one's present life. The living entities are given freedom to make their choice, and the Lord awards them accordingly. It is the duty of everyone, therefore, to worship devoutly only the personality of Godhead, to achieve his desired goal. The impersonalist, instead of speculating or meditating, can directly execute the routine devotional service of the Lord and thus easily obtain the desired goal. The devotees, however, are naturally inclined to become associates of the Lord and not merge into the spiritual existence, as conceived by the impersonalists. The devotees, therefore, following their constitutional instincts, achieve the desired goal of becoming servitors, friends, fathers, mothers, or conjugal lovers of the Lord. The devotional service of the Lord involves 9 transcendental processes, such as hearing and chanting, and by performing such easy and natural devotional services, the devotees achieve the highest perfectional results, far, far superior to merging into the existence of Brahman. The devotees are therefore never advised to indulge in speculating upon the nature of the Supreme or artificially meditating on the void. One should not, however, mistakenly think that after the annihilation of this present body, there is no body by which one can associate with the Lord face to face. The living entity is unborn. It is not that he is manifest with the creation of the material body. On the other hand, it is true that the material body develops only by the desire of the living entity. The evolution of the material body is due to the desires of the living being. Let's hear that again. The evolution of the material body is due to the desires of the living being. In other words, according to the desires of the living being, the material body develops. So from the spirit soul, the material body comes into existence, generated from the living force. Since the living being is eternal, he exists just like the sky within the body. The sky is within and without the body. Therefore, when the eternal covering, the material body, is vanquished, the living spark, like the sky within the body, continues to exist. And by the direction of the Lord, because he is the ultimate benefactor, the living entity is at once awarded the necessary spiritual body, befitting his association with the Lord, in the manner of sarupya, features equal to the Lord, shalokya, facility to live on the same planet as the Lord, sharsti, possession of opulence equal to the Lord's, and samipya, personal association with the Lord. The Lord is so kind that even if a devotee of the Lord cannot fulfill the complete course of devotional service, unalloyed and uncontaminated by material association, he is given another chance in the next life by being awarded a birth in the family of a devotee or rich man, so that without being engaged any struggle for material existence, the devotee can finish the remaining purification of his existence, and thus immediately, after relinquishing the present body, go back home, back to Godhead. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. In this connection, detailed information is available in the Bhagavat Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada. Once achieving the spiritual existence, the devotee is eternally situated there, as already discussed in the previous verse. Text 50. My dear son, I have now explained in brief the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the creator of the manifested worlds. Without him, Hari, the Lord, there are no other causes of the phenomenal and numinous existences. Purport. Since we generally have the experience of the temporary material world and conditioned souls trying to lord it over the material worlds, Brahmaji explained to Narada Dev that this temporary world is the work of the external potency of the Lord, and that the conditioned souls struggling here for existence are the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. There is no cause for all these phenomenal activities but Him, Hari, the Supreme Lord, who is the primeval cause of all causes. This does not mean, however, that the Lord Himself is distributed impersonally. He is aloof from all these interactions of the external and marginal potencies. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.4, it is confirmed that by His potencies alone, He is present everywhere and anywhere. Everything that is manifested rests on His potency only. But He, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is always aloof from everything. The potency and the potent are simultaneously one and different from one another. One should not deprecate the Supreme Lord for the creation of this miserable world. I'll repeat that again. One should not deprecate the Supreme Lord for the creation of this miserable world, just as one should not blame the king for creating a prison house in the government. The prison house is a necessary institution of the governmental establishment for those who are disobedient to the laws of the government. Similarly, this material world, full of miseries, is a temporary creation of the Lord for those who have forgotten Him and are trying to lord it over the false manifestation. I keep getting this message that I've failed to access the web page you want to view. I don't know why. I'm not engaging in observing anything. Okay. I'll repeat that last sentence. Similarly, this material world, full of miseries, is a temporary creation of the Lord for those who have forgotten Him and are trying to lord it over the false manifestation. He, however, is always anxious to get the fallen souls back home, back to Godhead. And for this, He has given so many chances to the conditioned souls via the authoritative scriptures. His representatives, and personal incarnations also. Since He has no direct attachment to this material world, He is not to be blamed for its creation. Text 51. Famous verse. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Yanme Bhagavatotitam Sangraho Yam Vibhutinam Tvam Etad Vipuli Kuru. O Narada, this science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam, was spoken to me in summary by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it was spoken as the accumulation of His diverse potencies. Please expand this science yourself. So here's Brahma speaking to Narada, who was the next link in the disciplic succession, and he's saying to him, now you spread it everywhere. Because he gave it, remember? He gave it to, the Lord gave it to Brahma in 4 verses. Purport. The Bhagavatam in a nutshell, spoken by the personality of Godhead in about 6 verses, which will appear ahead, is the science of God, and it is the potent representation of the personality of Godhead. He, being absolute, is non-different from the science of God, Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahmaji received this science of Godhead from the Lord directly, and he handed the same over to Narada, who in his turn ordered Srila Vyasadeva to expand it. So the transcendental knowledge of the Supreme Lord is not mental speculation by mundane wranglers, but is uncontaminated, eternal, perfect knowledge beyond the jurisdiction of the material modes. This Bhagavad Purana is therefore the direct incarnation of the Lord in the form of transcendental sound, and one should receive this transcendental knowledge from the bona fide representative of the Lord in the chain of disciplic succession, from the Lord to Brahmaji, from Brahmaji to Narada, from Narada to Vyasa, from Vyasadeva to Shukadev Goswami, from Shukadev Goswami to Sutta Goswami, and so on. The ripened fruit of the Vedic tree, desire tree, drops from one hand to another without being broken by falling suddenly from a high branch down to the earth. Therefore, unless one hears the science of Godhead from the bona fide representative of the disciplic succession, as above mentioned, for one to understand the theme of the science of Godhead will be a little difficult job. It should never be heard from the professional Bhagavatam reciters who earn their livelihood by gratifying the senses of the audience. Text 52. Please describe the science of Godhead with determination and in a manner by which it will be quite possible for the human being to develop transcendental devotional service under the personality of Godhead, Hari, the super soul of every living being and the summum bonum source of all energies. So it just goes deeper and deeper, and it keeps on going like that. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prior to the age of Kali, there was no need for such a book of knowledge to know the Lord. Cancel. Hopefully that'll do it. I'll read this again. This is very interesting. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is the philosophy of devotional service and the scientific presentation of man's relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prior to the age of Kali, there was no need for such a book of knowledge to know the Lord and His potent energies. But with the beginning of the age of Kali, human society gradually became influenced by 4 sinful principles, namely illegitimate connection with women, intoxication, gambling, and unnecessary killing of animals. Because of these basic sinful acts, man gradually became forgetful of his original relation with God. Therefore, man became blind, so to speak, to his ultimate goal of life. The ultimate goal of life is not to pass a life of irresponsibility like the animals and indulge in a polished way in the 4 animal principles, namely eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. For such a blind human society in the darkness of ignorance, Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight to see things in proper perspective. Therefore, it was necessary to describe the science of God from the very beginning, or from the very birth of the phenomenal world. As we have already explained, Srimad Bhagavatam is so scientifically presented that any sincere student of this great science will be able to understand the science of God simply by reading it with attention, or simply by regularly hearing it from the bona fide speaker. Everyone is hankering after happiness in life, but in this age the members of human society, blind as they are, do not have the proper vision that the personality of Godhead is the reservoir of all happiness, because He is the ultimate source of everything. Janmad yasya yataha. Happiness in complete perfection, without hindrance, can be achieved only by our devotional service with Him. And it is only by His association that we can get free of distressful material existence. Even those who are after the enjoyment of this material world can also take shelter of the great science of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they will be successful at the end. Narad is therefore requested or ordered by his spiritual master to present this science with determination in a good plan. Narada was never advised to preach the principles of Bhagavatam to earn a living, a livelihood. He was ordered by his spiritual master to take the matter very seriously in a missionary spirit. 53. The Lord's activities in association with His different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard in accordance with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly, with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. Can I read that again? Do I have your permission? The Lord's activities in association with His different energies should be described, appreciated, and heard according with the teachings of the Supreme Lord. If this is done regularly, with devotion and respect, one is sure to get out of the illusory energy of the Lord. Purport. The science of learning a subject matter seriously is different from the sentiments of fanatics. Fanatics, or fools, may consider the Lord's activities in relation with the external energy to be useless for them, and they may falsely claim to be higher participants in the internal energy of the Lord. But factually, the Lord's activities in relation with the external energy and the internal energy are equally good. On the other hand, those who are not completely free from the clutches of the Lord's external energy should devoutly hear regularly about the activities of the Lord in relation with the external energy. They should not foolishly jump up to the activities of the Lord's internal energy, falsely attracted by such activities as His Rasa Lila. The cheap reciters of the Bhagavatam are very much enthusiastic about the activities of the Lord's internal potencies, and the pseudo-devotees, absorbed in material sense enjoyment, falsely jump to the stage of liberated souls and thus fall down deeply into the clutches of the external energy. Some pseudo-devotees think that to hear about the pastimes of the Lord means to hear about His activities with the gopis, or about His pastimes like lifting of Govardhan Hill. And they have nothing to do with the Lord's plenary expansions as the Purusha avatars, and their pastimes of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material worlds. But a pure devotee knows that there is no difference between the Lord's Rasa Lila pastimes and His pastimes of creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Rather, the descriptions of such activities of the Lord as those performed by the Purusha avatars are specifically meant for persons who are in the clutches of the external energy. Topics like the Rasa Lila are meant for liberated souls and not for conditioned souls. The conditioned souls, therefore, must hear with appreciation and devotion the Lord's pastimes in relationship with the external energy, and hearing such pastimes is as good as hearing the Rasa Lila in the liberated stage. A conditioned soul should not imitate the activities of liberated souls. Lord Sri Chaitanya never indulged in hearing the Rasa Lila with ordinary men. Could you get me one of those pillows? Yeah. The chair is not working. Yeah. Yeah, that's better. Thank you. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Science of God, the first 9 cantos prepare the ground for hearing the 10th canto. This will be further explained in the last chapter of this canto. In the 3rd canto, it will be more explicit. A pure devotee of the Lord, therefore, must begin reading or hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the very beginning, and not from the 10th canto. We have several times been requested by some so-called devotees to take up the 10th canto immediately, but we have refrained from such an action because we wish to present Srimad Bhagavatam as the science of Godhead, and not as a sensuous understanding for the conditioned souls. This is forbidden by such authorities as Sri Brahmaji. By reading and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam as a scientific presentation, the conditioned souls will gradually be promoted to the higher status of transcendental knowledge after being freed from the illusory energy based on sense enjoyment. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 2nd canto, 7th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Scheduled Incarnations with Specific Functions. Srila Prabhupada's transcendental genius. I was just speaking with Deva Prastha Prabhu, who was hearing tonight, about the Krishna book. I remember when the Krishna book, well, I wasn't there when it came out, but very close to when it came out. Maybe I was, 72? Don't remember. Anyway, we were some of the first devotees to distribute that book. And I remember reading that book, and here he's saying, shouldn't jump to the 10th canto, but he published the Krishna book, one of the first books. I mean, we don't want to speculate, but it could be that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to get the 10th canto just in case he couldn't finish the first 9. Which he did finish the first 9. He didn't finish the whole 10th canto, but he finished the first 9. But he gave us the Krishna book in such a way, as Deva Prasad and I were talking about this morning, that we get the verses and we get the essential comments of the most important commentators, Vishwanath Sanatana Goswami, Jiva Goswami, Sridhar Swami. Then we get, top of that, Srila Prabhupada's commentary, his comments, which adjust it all and explain the very thing that he's just explaining here. And it's not, the chronology is not quite clear, because he might have had this manuscript, or at least part of it, with him when he came to the West. He had published the first 3 volumes, the first canto, but he had started the 2nd canto. And I don't know personally, I'm sure somebody would, how many chapters or whatever, how much of the 2nd canto he actually had. But definitely he either wrote it before or just around the same time as he did the Krishna book. Very interesting how genius Prabhupada was, that he gave the 10th canto, but in a way that you could read it and safely understand everything without going to this sentimental stage that he's talking about here is dangerous. Anyway, I just thought I would make that comment for the benefit of my own mind. Anyone else who's listening. Okay, now we're moving on to the 8th chapter. Very interesting title. Questions by King Parikshit. Now it's going to get deeper. This is the process of spiritual realization. The student inquires and the teacher explains. And if you keep inquiring, then the teacher will go as deep as your questions will allow. So now there's already been questions, and now Parikshit's getting down to the point where he wants to know more. And those questions stimulate and spur Shukadeva Goswami to go further. Okay. But every time he answers a question, he answers it according to what he has heard by some previous authority who has answered the same question. In the material world, you have a teacher and you're always trying to surpass him or something like that. Here it's just the opposite in spiritual life. Okay. Chapter 8. Questions by King Parikshit. Text 1. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? Purport. Devarshi Narada was directly instructed by Brahmaji, who was also directly instructed by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the instructions imparted by Narada to his various disciples are as good as those of the Supreme Lord. That is the way of understanding Vedic knowledge. It comes down from the Lord by disciplic succession, and this transcendental knowledge is distributed to the world by this descending process. There is no chance, however, to receive the Vedic knowledge from mental speculators. Therefore, wherever Narada Muni goes, he represents himself as authorized by the Lord, and his appearance is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. Similarly, the disciplic succession which strictly follows the transcendental instruction is the bona fide chain of disciplic succession. And the test for such bona fide spiritual masters is that there should be no difference between the instruction of the Lord originally imparted to his devotee and that which is imparted by the authority in the line of disciplic succession. How Narada Muni distributed the transcendental knowledge of the Lord will be explained in later cantos. It will appear also that the Lord existed prior to the material creation, and therefore his transcendental name, qualities, etc., do not represent any material quality. Whenever, therefore, the Lord is described as aguna, or without any quality, it does not mean that he has no quality, but that he has no material quality, such as the modes of goodness, passion, or ignorance, as the conditioned souls have. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, and thus he is described as aguna. Text 2. The king said, I wish to know Narrations concerning the Lord, who possesses wonderful potencies, are certainly auspicious for living beings in all planets. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the activities of the Supreme Lord, is auspicious for all living beings residing in every planet. One who takes it as belonging to a particular sect is certainly mistaken. Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly a very dear scripture for all the devotees of the Lord, but it is auspicious even for the non-devotees, and also because it explains that even the non-devotees hovering under the spell of the material energy can be delivered from such clutches if they hear the narration of the Srimad Bhagavatam. There it is, every page, practically every page. With devotion and attention from the right source, representing the Lord by disciplic succession. Prabhupada. Text 3. O greatly fortunate Shukadeva Goswami, please continue narrating Srimad Bhagavatam so that I may place my mind upon the Supreme Soul, Lord Krishna, and being completely freed from material qualities, thus relinquish this body. Purport. To be fully engaged in hearing the transcendental narration described in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam means to constantly associate with the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. Shall I read that again? To be fully engaged in hearing the transcendental narration described in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam means to constantly associate with the Supreme Soul, Sri Krishna. And to constantly associate with the Supreme Lord means to be liberated from the qualities of matter. Lord Krishna is like the sun, and material contamination is like darkness. As the presence of the sun dissipates darkness, constant engagement in the association of the Lord, Sri Krishna, frees one from the contamination of the material qualities. Contamination by the material qualities is the cause of repeated birth and death, and liberation from material qualities is transcendence. Maharaj Parikshit was now a realized soul by this secret of liberation, through the grace of Shukadeva Goswami, for the latter had informed the king that the highest perfection of life is to be in remembrance of Narayana at the end of life. Maharaj Parikshit was destined to give up his body at the end of 7 days, and thus he decided to continue remembering the Lord by his association with the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus to quit his body in full consciousness of the presence of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Soul. The hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam from professional men is different from the transcendental hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. Maharaj Parikshit was a soul realized in the absolute truth, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. The fruitive materialists are not realized souls. They want to derive some material benefit from their so-called hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. Undoubtedly, such an audience, by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from the professional men, can derive some material benefit as they desire. But that does not mean that by such a pretense of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for a week is as good as the hearing of Maharaj Parikshit. It is the duty of the sane to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized soul and not be duped by professional men. One should continue such hearing till the end of one's life, so that one can actually have the transcendental association of the Lord and thus be liberated simply by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Maharaj Parikshit had already given up all his connections with his kingdom and family, the most attractive features of materialism. But still he was conscious of his material body. He wanted to be free of such bondage also by the constant association of the Lord. Text 4. Shrinvata Shraddhaya Nityam Grinatas cha Swachestitam Kalina Nati Dirgena Bhagavan Vishate Hridi. Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, manifested in their hearts within a short time. I think I'll hear that again also. I mean, how many times does Prabhupada have to say this before everybody in the world picks up on it? Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, manifested in their hearts within a short time. He's there in everyone's heart already, but he's not manifested. That's the whole point. He has to manifest himself, and only he can do that. And only we can decide that we want that. That's it. As soon as we decide that we want that, he begins to manifest. And in proportion to the degree of that eagerness, to the proportion of the degree of that desire, the intensity of that desire, he will manifest himself. Purport. Cheap devotees or materialistic devotees of the Lord are very much desirous to see the Lord personally without meeting the requisite qualifications. Such third-grade devotees should know well that material attachment and seeing the Lord face to face cannot go together. It is not such a mechanical process that the professional Bhagavatam reciters can do the job on behalf of the third-grade materialistic pseudo-devotee. The professional men are useless in this connection because they are neither self-realized nor interested in the liberation of the audience. They are simply interested in maintaining the material establishment of family attachment and earning some material benefits out of the profession. Prabhupada used to tell the story when he was living at home with his father, that he used to see men go back to their family in the morning. They would put on saffron cloth and they would go out and go door to door. Sorry, that's my fault. My bad. Sound is off. And then they would go out and they go door to door and preach and all these things. And then they would come back, take off their saffron cloth, put the money in the hands of their family members. That was it. Maharaj Parikshit had no more than 7 days to live. But for others, Maharaj Parikshit personally recommends that one hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, nityam, always by one's own effort and with serious devotion also. That will help one to see the Lord Sri Krishna manifested in one's heart within no time. The pseudo-devotee, however, is very anxious to see the Lord according to his whims, not making any serious effort to hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly with detachment from material benefit. That is not the way recommended by an authority like Maharaj Parikshit, who heard and benefited by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Text 5. Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, enters into the heart of a self-realized soul, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. Prabhupada's translation. So poetic. Purport. It is said that a single pure devotee of the Lord can deliver all the fallen souls of the world. Thus, one who is actually in the confidence of a pure devotee like Narada or Shukadeva Goswami, and thus is empowered by one's spiritual master, as Narada was by Brahmaji, can not only deliver himself from the clutches of Maya or illusion, but can deliver the whole world by his pure and empowered devotional strength. The comparison to the autumnal rain that falls on muddy reservoirs of water is very appropriate. During the rainy season, all the waters of the rivers become muddy. But in the months of September, October, during the autumn season, when there is a slight rainfall, the muddy waters in the rivers all over the world become at once clear. By addition of some chemical, a small reservoir of water, like that of a metropolitan waterworks tank, can be cleared. But by such a tiny effort, it is not possible to clear up all the reservoirs of water like the rivers. A powerful pure devotee of the Lord, however, can deliver not only his personal self, but also many others in his association. In other words, the cleansing of the polluted heart by other methods, like the culture of empiric knowledge or mystic gymnastics, can simply cleanse one's own heart. But the devotional service of your Lord is so powerful that it can cleanse the hearts of the people in general by the devotional service of the pure, empowered devotee. A true representative of the Lord like Narada, Shukadeva Goswami, Lord Chaitanya, the six Goswamis, and later Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Haridas Thakur, is disappearance state, can deliver all people by their empowered devotional service. By sincere efforts to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, one realizes his constitutional relationship with the Lord in the transcendental humor of servitude, friendship, parental affection, or conjugal love. And by such self-realization, one becomes situated at once in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Not only were we all the pure devotees like Narada, self-realized souls, not only were all the pure devotees like Narada, self-realized souls, but they were engaged in preaching work automatically by spiritual impetus, and thus they delivered many poor souls entangled in the material modes. Thus they became so powerful because they sincerely followed the Bhagavatam principles by regularly hearing and worshipping. By such actions, the accumulated material lusts, etc., become cleansed by the personal endeavor of the Lord within the heart. The Lord is always within the heart of the living being, but he becomes manifested by one's devotional service. Purification of the heart by culture of knowledge or mystic yoga may be all right for the time being for an individual person, but it is like the cleansing of a small quantity of stagnant water by chemical processes. Such clarification of water may stand for the time being and the sediments settle down, but by a slight agitation everything becomes muddy. The idea is that devotional service to the Lord is the only method of cleansing the heart for good. whereas other methods may be superficially good for the time being. There is a risk of becoming muddy again due to agitation of the mind. Devotional service to the Lord with specific attention to hearing Srimad Bhagavatam regularly and always is the best recommended method for liberation from the clutches of illusion. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. 7:30 on the dot. We'll stop here the reading and we'll have some discussions. Everyone, go ahead.
We have questions.
Go ahead. Bhakta Matt has become our techie. He's traveling with me now for a while.
Can you guess who the first question's from here?
Rati Manjari.
Hannah.
Hannah. All right, she's superseded Rati Manjari. Go ahead, Hannah.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, question machine here. We read, sky is within and without the body. Therefore, when the external covering of the material body is vanquished, the living spark, like the sky within the body, continues to exist. Is this also true for the spiritual sky continuing to exist once the cosmic manifestation is destroyed?
Yes.
Simple answer. Yeah.
Yes. Correct. Well said and well realized. The spiritual world is eternal, and therefore when the material world, it's like an analogy between the soul in the body and the super soul, which is the soul of the gigantic universal body, and the spiritual soul, the spiritual world.
We have another question.
Yes.
From Lily.
From Lily. Hey Lily, it's nice to stay with you.
She says, Hare Krishna Maharaj,
Hare
what are some
Krishna.
ways that a pure devotee can deliver more souls than their own?
Well, we've heard in this reading we did tonight, and in every reading we've done for the last 4 months live, and I've been doing this for 5 years now, that on every page of Srila Prabhupada's books it says the same thing. Serious hearing and chanting regularly, every day, with enthusiasm and with eagerness to know, will spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Whoever is doing that, it will spread the Krishna consciousness movement to others. One will get liberated oneself, and even if you're sitting in the same room and you vibrate this sound regularly every day, seriously, even the insects and other living beings in the room, we have different living beings in every room, they will get benefit. They may not get liberated right away, but they will get benefit. They will take human birth. They will get a chance to come in contact with devotion and devotional service. So I think the essence of what I'm trying to say is that the best way to spread Krishna consciousness is to become Krishna conscious oneself. Because if you become Krishna conscious yourself, you become a beacon. And that beacon is the contagious attachment for the Supreme Lord. The more attached you become to the Supreme Lord, the more other people become attached to you. And they will want what you got. And they will want, and when you tell them then to hear about the Supreme Lord from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, they will do it. And they will get the same result as you. What else?
I was thinking tonight also there was quite a few references to professional reciters.
Mm.
I've noticed that in Srila Prabhupada's books, just a curiosity, the first canto, second canto, it comes up a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe that's because you wrote those in India. It's very prominent in India.
It is, but if you keep reading, you'll see that he completely, because the professional reciters are here also. They may not be professionally reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, but they're on the pulpit, on the TV, and pretending like they're in ecstasy, and having all the people send their money to them so they can offer the prayer and it'll get to the Lord. You got to go through me to get to the Lord. And then he takes the money to the bank and laughs his head off all the way. And everybody else stays in the same place. And that's the same effect as listening to a professional reciter. You stay in the same place. You don't go forward. You don't become enlightened. You get sometimes you get some temporary entertainment that does inspire you, and because Krishna is the subject, there's some benefit, but it's very little, and it will take a long, long time. And if you continue to associate with such persons, you become contaminated with their consciousness. And that's why Prabhupada was so insistent that we shouldn't do it. Because if we stay in touch with materialists, especially those who are pretending to be devotees, that's the word he used many times in this reading, pretenders, pretentious persons, pseudo-devotees, he said. He used that word quite a few times. If you associate with pseudo-devotees, and you're really looking for something fit for yourself, and they're promising that they're going to give it to you, and then you listen to them and think that you're going to get it just by listening to them, and they're not teaching you to change your heart and to change your activities and to take it seriously, then you'll just stay in the same place, or maybe you can stay in the same place, or you'll gradually fall down. You won't get the spiritual strength to resist the temptations of this material energy. Material energy is very strong. Make no doubt, make no mistake. Kali Yuga in this material world is very powerful. Yes.
Question. This is from Matthew Befford. He says, why is Krishna described as the best name of God? It is said Hare Krishna Maha Mantra joins Srimati Radharani with Lord Krishna, but Lord Chaitanya is both Srimati Radharani and Krishna together.
Very good question, Matthew. Excellent question. Thank you so much, because the answer to this question can help you to perform sincere devotional service. The reason it's true, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that if you chant the name of Gora, Gauranitai, or the Panchatattva, then you immediately feel ecstasy. So why are we chanting Hare Krishna? Do you want to know the answer?
Yes.
Because Lord Chaitanya tells us to chant Hare Krishna. It's as simple as that. He tells us to chant Hare Krishna. Therefore we chant Hare Krishna. Because he is Krishna acting as a devotee of Krishna, teaching us how to worship himself. Yes, sir. Yes, we can, or we can chant it before we chant japa, and then just keep chanting japa. But whenever we have kirtan, whenever we chant our japa, whenever we do some bona fide spiritual activity, we always do it in an authorized way. And there's one classic purport in the Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the first chapter, where Prabhupada repeats the Maha Mantra and the Panchatattva mantra over and over and over again in the purport to make it clear to us. This is the process. You first chant the Panchatattva Maha Mantra, because that will relieve us from offenses when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The reason we don't chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra right away in the beginning, and we must chant the Panchatattva Maha Mantra, not just Gauranitai. This is the instruction of Lord Chaitanya coming through Srila Prabhupada. We have to chant the complete Panchatattva Maha Mantra, which worships Lord Chaitanya in all of his features, in the 5 features, as the original personality of Godhead, as his first expansion, Lord Nityananda or Lord Balaram, as his incarnation into the material world, which is Mahavishnu, or Advaita Acharya, And his internal energy is Shakti, Gadadhar, or Srimati Radharani, and the Jiva Tattva, who is pure, the pure Jiva Tattva, and all the followers. Srivas Thakur, who represents Narada Muni. So if you chant the names of all those persons, you're chanting the full name of Lord Chaitanya. And then you can chant the Hare Krishna mantra without offense. So, number one, we chant Hare Krishna, even though it's more prone to make offense, because Lord Chaitanya tells us to. That's the reason we do it. Because it's the goal. Lord Chaitanya is also the goal. And he has an eternal form in the spiritual world, an eternal abode in Goloka Vrindavan, where he eternally manifests his pastimes with his eternal associates. And if you are desirous enough, and if you become qualified, then you can live in both those places at the same time. So we don't have to worry about missing out on something if we really want to not miss out on something. But in order to know these things, in order to know what to desire, and how to desire, you have to hear these books, as it's been said over and over again in all these purports, systematically. Bhagavad Gita systematically all the way through. Then the Bhagavatam systematically all the way through, cover to cover. Then the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, cover to cover. And then you will understand all these things. So my advice to you as to how to learn this is to read these books cover to cover. And I'm very happy to be here and read them cover to cover in order to be your servant. Hare Krishna. That's it. 7:45. We are in the sanctified atmosphere of Giriraj Maharaj's abode, where he's living now. And so I told him that we would be here from 6 to 7:45. So we'll stop now. We'll thank everyone who's there, especially the ones in Houston that are asking questions. And Matthew, that was a great question. Thank you very much. Keep asking and keep hearing and being convinced. And all the other devotees that are out there in cyberspace, especially those maybe in the UK who may be listening a little later, because it's real late now, and there it's 6 hours later. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. Hare Krishna. And for those of you who are with me today in Dallas, thank you very much for your inspiration. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Narada Muni ki jai. Shri Brahmaji ki jai. Shukadev Goswami ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.